This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pearse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamel.
I'm somewhat more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
So we're talking about your fourth property today.
All right, sounds good to me. It's always nice to relive the past.
Definitely. You were in Lake Placid yesterday?
Yeah, we took off to Lake Placid, Monday afternoon. So it's nice when you've been doing this a while and, you're self-employed and, you're able to just run out for a day and have that type of time freedom. So we saw on social media that the bike shop that I purchased my bike at was doing, tune-ups on one-day turnaround. So I took advantage of that and went to Lake Placid for the day. Enjoyed the view from the Crown Plaza.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's a nice night.
So what was the date for this fourth property?
The date for this fourth property, I believe it was October 95.
Okay.
For the fourth one.
And was this one also in Albany?
This one was in Menands. It's a small village just outside of Albany, New York.
What made you look into a different area?
Opportunity. So there was a specific broker that I had gained a bit of traction with, where she was feeding me some deals. And this one came up. She let me know about it. And it was just a small single family in Menands that needed work.
And so this was the first single family that you purchased?
Yeah, first single family, first property that we bought, distressed, where it was a bank foreclosure on the market for, I think it was like $28,000. So approached it thinking $28,000 purchase. I might have gotten it a little less than that, but it was new to market and estimated about $20,000 in repairs. So, it was the beginning of the value add deals, which were exciting, where you buy for $28,000 or around or about, put $20,000 in, and you have a finished value of probably $75,000, $80,000 at the time. You rent it out, it cash flows, and put it in the portfolio, and it works.
Okay, so you got the single family with the intention of adding value and just renting it, not as a flip.
Yeah, I wasn't in the flipping mindset at this point. We were really looking to build a portfolio.
Mm-hmm. And how did you fund that initial down payment? Was it a 20% down payment, or did you have to give a full amount for the foreclosure structure?
On this one, I believe that it's interesting, trying to remember, because me and my partner Greg had bought the first three properties, and this fourth one we brought in another partner, which is another partner that I've had up till this day, my brother. And we funded this together. I believe we got some private financing to get into the purchase, and then we, sweat equity and credit carded the improvements, to get to that finished value point. And once we had it refinanced some short time later, we bought Mike out, and me and Greg kept it in our portfolio.
So your brother saw you having some success in the Albany area, and he wanted a piece of the action?
Yeah, that first deal that I was going to do on my own, property number one, which I couldn't do on my own. Banks wouldn't give me a loan. I went to Mike first. He wasn't crazy about the location for very valid reasons. And fortunately, my friend Greg partnered up. But, I don't know, 2 years later, now we're on property number 4. We were running the first 3 properties functionally, making some money. moving along, certainly passionate for the business. And, he's a businessman. So, he easily saw that based on being my brother and always having a great relationship. So on this fourth one, he certainly saw the value. And the Village of Menands is, a very solid village with, you know, low crime, great housing stock, a lot of potential, especially when you're buying something all in for, at the time, $45,000-$50,000 finished value, knowing that we could rent it for $800 or $900.
A couple of young guys without a lot of construction experience. How long did it take you to renovate it?
Oh, that was interesting. I'm sure that there was a lot of inefficiency on that one. I remember, specifically because my partner Greg, he had still had his W-2. I was still working nights at a restaurant, but during the day, now I'm a rehabber. So off to the new project without having any real ability in construction other than simple stuff like painting, cleaning, simple things like that. So my first learning curve was patching walls. So I remember specifically, using the wrong tools and getting it done. But yeah, there was a lot of inefficiency, but it was the learning experience. So eventually, you fine tune those skills.
As a new guy in the business, I find myself somewhat overwhelmed with construction, and I have the access to YouTube, which is a huge tool to really teach you anything. How did you do it without something like that to teach you? Did you have a book, or did you just find a tool and get to work?
I can only laugh. I can only laugh with a lot of things that I've done throughout my life. And there's pros and cons to it. I'm self-taught in so many ways, but, I tend to just jump in and figure it out. And in this case, it was, me and Greg, we had so many laughs in the early days because we were both learning. And not that it wasn't efficient for the business, or sometimes, in those first few properties, certain projects that we did, we would just look at each other and laugh because, at that point, our skill set wasn't great. And some of our, projects, did not look great. And, ultimately we had to redo those over time when the next apartment turned over, or whatever the case may be. But literally just learned that way.
Yeah, it sounds like an incredible learning experience. So at this point, you have four properties. When you started, you were really just a college kid. Did you see a identity shift or new habits that you had collected along this short journey that really changed your day-to-day mentality and actions?
It was literally just work ethic. Just fortunately, I had a job that I did pretty well at, waiting tables, which provided a pretty good income for, somebody in their early 20s, enabled me to do my thing during the day with the real estate. So it was, getting up in the morning instead of, just relaxing and doing whatever I wanted throughout the day, waiting to go to work at night. I went out to find properties or work on properties. And I had always been a hard worker, even, any jobs that I had, in my teens. Sometimes it was tough getting me to work, because you're distracted with teenage type stuff and friends and things like that. But, when I'm on the job, I work. That was something that I just always have done, where I put in 100% and get it done. So when I had this desire, to do real estate, during the day, I just put hard work into action.
Mm-hmm. How was the property management side of this property? It's different, single family. It's in a new area.
Basically, similar. It's a good rental market at the time, still is. So it was just a matter of, instead of renting an apartment, you're renting a single family house. So, I believe our first couple tenants, or, the common tenant that we had there over the years was a small family.
Are there any crazy stories, any cockroaches or hoarders or anything like that?
Along the way, we had some trials and tribulations with tenants in the early years, just like we did with a lot of our apartments, until you fine tune your screening, ensuring that, whenever anybody gets into an apartment, that the screening process really does tell you, the stability, paying rent and taking care of a unit. So we dealt with some of that, but worked through it as usual. This property, I would say once we really did solidify a good tenant, probably a couple years in, she turned into a long-term tenant. It was her and her two kids, and her son, unfortunately, teenage son, who was smoking in his bedroom. Don't ask me why he's capable of smoking inside his house without repercussion, but he burned the house down. Wow. So probably, I would say we bought this in 95, so probably around the year 2000 this place burned. And now I'm looking at something new and different, where we're tackling the general contracting side of a burnout, and ultimately learning the insurance business quickly. When you go to a property of yours, during a fire or shortly after a fire, you learn that, just like I've learned a lot of things, where you're going there just in great concern for what had happened, making sure that your tenant is safe, everybody got out. But there's where I was introduced to insurance adjusters and board up crews and the entire fire industry, which I didn't even realize existed until, I showed up, ultimately, getting to a point where you get your insurance money to, fund the rebuild.
That was quite a curveball. I didn't see that coming. So you completely rebuilt the house yourself after it burned down?
We had to get some contractors. So, first comes the board up, which we did. You got to board up the windows, so, people don't break into the house while it's, in that disrepair state. You don't want animals getting in, stuff like that, just liability. But that first part of the process was getting the insurance straight, which we did. And then, I went in as I normally would, and, basically gutted the place, single-handedly. Greg certainly helped along the way, but like I had mentioned, he was a W-2 guy, worked during the day. And I was going there, immediately, during the day, gutting a house that had just burned. Once it got into the rebuild, we were now with the task of hiring, skilled contractors to help put the house together.
I'm guessing that ended the lease, automatic termination of that tenant.
Well, physically that was inevitable. But looking back, the tenant was, she was a great woman who was raising two kids, and we rebuilt the house and put her back in.
Okay. How long did you hold on to it?
We owned that up until probably 6 months ago. So probably July, August of 2020, we had finally exited that property.
And what were you able to sell it for about 25 years later?
25 years later, that one, we ended up buying the house next door. So we had owned two single families right next door to each other. And we also built, a small portfolio in that little block. We had a couple two families, literally, two doors down. So we sold this in a package with the single family next door. So I believe we got like $230,000 for the two. So these two particular assets didn't make a major killing, but we were probably into them total Yeah, you were probably into them for it's tough to figure based on the fire and all that. The fire, had profit in it by itself.
Mm.
But I think we probably had $80,000 in debt on these two properties at this point, and then sold them for 230,000. So we recognized a modest gain, because we did own it for that long.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it did okay. They all do. We've made money on basically or everything that we've ever done. You figure in the time in on some of these. So sometimes when you own something for 20, 25 years, you would hope to recognize a bit more. Some have been total grand slams, and some have done pretty good. But at the end of the day, we always make money.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you what you learned the most from this property. There's a lot going on with the rehab and the fire.
Yeah, there was a lot over the years, whether it be the rehab in the beginning, whether it be learning the business after, a property burns, learning the insurance business, and then jumping into literally, I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, but I had turned into a general contractor after the burnout. Meaning, I'm there every day organizing contractors and rebuilding a house from beginning to end, which is basically general construction, right to seeing the value in the house next door, clustering other properties, within that little area, seeing the efficiency on building a, small portfolio in that spot,
Is there any advice you could give to someone that finds themselves in a similar situation where they have to become a general contractor and they don't have any experience in that?
Most people would, reach out to someone who had a much more construction experience and, hire somebody to run that job. And, you just kind of stand aside. You're getting funded by the insurance company to rebuild the property. As long as you're properly insured, hopefully you would be. And, you let the general contractor, rebuild, and you just, fund it accordingly. But that was certainly not my mindset at the time. My mindset in my early days was, all right, here's the project, and I'm jumping in, I'm running it, doing whatever I have to get it done. So I was the guy to do that job because I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people in this industry have that similar mentality.
Yeah, I would say so. And at this point in my career, looking back, it was probably the wrong decision. I was, when you just fall into becoming a general contractor without planning on it, I wasn't ready for that. I just kind of get things done. And, if I had just hired a general contractor, it may have gone smoother. Who knows what the budget might have turned out better, even though, without me having to do nearly as much. We'll never know for sure. But, going forward and through the, your learning curves through the business, there's a time and place for everything. Everyone has their own skill sets. And it gets to a point where continue doing what you're really good at, specifically if it's stuff that really makes a difference in your business, but hire people out to do the things that you're not necessarily strong at or trained at, mm-hmm. Specifically being a general contractor, when I didn't even know what being a general contractor was.
No, I think that's great advice for anyone listening that wants to be in the same type of situation, to swallow the ego and call someone that knows what they're doing and have it done properly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, that's just me. I once again, I just giggle looking back. I guess it's a stubborn mindset that I had. I don't consider me being nearly that person at this point, just from learning so much over the years. Sometimes my first reaction is to be like that, but it's stepping back and saying, hey, wait a second here. what's the best use of my time at this point? But back then, I was just going to do anything and everything, and no one was going to tell me any differently.
And I think that can apply to a lot more areas of life than just real estate. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just personality things.
was your fifth property in this neighborhood as well?
Fifth property was in the Albany neighborhood. So,
Back to Pine
same
Hills.
idea. I believe it was still considered Pine Hills. It was kind of in an in-between area. It might have been considered the Beverwick neighborhood. I'm trying to remember, but it was in that SUNY Albany student area where probably 7 or 8 blocks from that Pine Hills neighborhood, North Allen Street, that we had developed, purchased 2 properties at that point. So it was just across town a bit. Another, foreclosure needed work, and our target renters were students.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear more about it. Thanks, Bill.
Sounds great. Thanks, Stephen.